do.
Welcome to another Bad Batch Companion Series episode. I'm Pixel Nick, and with me, as always, your boy Mikey. Mikey, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good. How was your weekend?
Pretty good. A little relaxing. Went to the gym a couple times.
There you go.
Grilling.
Yeah.
Had some nice weather. Had some rain.
Yeah, we had like a very crappy day, which was nice and relaxing. Then we had like a very nice day, which was also relaxing. So no complaints here at all for that. Definitely excited to dig into episode 12 here of the Bad Batch, Rescue on Ryloth. I think picking up from the last episode, we kind of nailed that, like chasing right after Hera, kind of continuing the story, justifying the entire episode about the Syndulas and Ryloth, and went from a cameo of the Bad Batch to essentially a full-on Bad Batch episode. Very solid segue into the final two episodes, I would say. I kind of have a feeling for like where this is going to go a little bit, but exactly how it's going to land, I'm not sure. I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think kind of the ending, not to jump forward, but I think it's kind of where we knew it had to get at some point.
Yeah. The one plot element that we're like, that eventually has to resurface because he's been itching for this, this chance.
Yeah, we kind of just wondered how late in the season that we were, it was going to happen. So now we kind of see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we kind of see too, like I said, more of the overall impact, but we saw the batch, the connection, to bigger connection to the last episode. And this one had a lot of action.
Yeah. It's kind of a culmination of a lot of different elements, because we kind of got the stealth element from episode 10, I think it was, where they're kind of stealthing around rescuing that senator from Raxus, and then we got the full on action, which was kind of hybrid action where we're kind of infiltrating that facility there, and we got the gunships kind of blowing stuff up. So pretty solid episode overall. And definitely moving some plot elements forward, and also kind of widening the overall story arc in terms of the inhibitor chip, because we kind of, some of our speculations about Hauser, kind of came full circle there, and he more or less is completely unaffected by the inhibitor chip, at least at this stage, as well as a bunch of other just regular clones. So I thought that was very interesting from the show. But also we'll get into that. But I did want to mention, because I saw people asking about it, talking about it, and just generally confused about it, and that's Hera's accent in this show versus her accent in Rebels. So I just kind of wanted to clear that up a little bit from how I've seen that explained. That's kind of the way I thought about it too. It didn't really strike me as an issue. Obviously, I noticed it, but I didn't see it as a problem or anything disruptive. But essentially, on Ryloth there, the way they speak is kind of accented, kind of like a French-ish annotation on it. And that's just kind of how they all speak, and you can tell that from her family and everything. Just like a little broken English, essentially. And really, the way it is as she grows up, gets out into the galaxy, because right now she's a kid, she's never left the planet. So by the time Rebels comes around, she's a full adult, and just being around a lot of other people, she's just learned how to speak a different dialect of common language in the galaxy. So she's kind of dropped the accent as she got older. So I don't know, I just saw people kind of being confused by the fact that she went from no accent essentially to a very heavy accent in this series. I know you haven't seen Rebels or anything like that, but you'll notice it when when or if you ever watch that series. She just basically sounds like any other Star Wars character speaking English.
Yeah, my brother watched new one today, and he's only watched a couple with me. And he hasn't seen Rebels either, but he did ask me. He's like, "Did you notice everyone on that planet speaks French?"
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I didn't notice," but he would I didn't, nothing about that she had another accent or anything. But
Yeah, it's almost like maybe that's like how, I don't know if it's like how French speak English,
Quebec,
or if it's like Quebec, how they speak
yeah,
English. I don't know. I wonder which one it might be. But
yeah,
yeah, I essentially just want to kind of make a note on that, just because it's very noticeable. But I forget who or where I read that, but they shed some light on the reasoning for that decision.
man.
But it's just like the local dialect, and she kind of shakes it as she gets older.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it fits.
Cruising the galaxy.
Yeah, non-disruptive. And
Yeah.
though it is interesting because Kanan, episode 1, he has this like very, he doesn't sound like his age or how he looks. He has that very deep voice, and that's because Freddie Prinze Jr. is still voicing him. So basically, yeah, Kanan, he's always sounded that way. But yeah, just, I mean, what is it? I mean, this is probably like 20 years earlier. No, maybe like 15, something like that. I'm not really sure where it falls, like year wise with Rebels. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of note that. But yeah, I mean, we kick off the episode here on Ryloth again, and basically we're kind of getting this big panning shot of the city, and we get some gunships flying in, essentially kind of full on showing that the planet is full on Imperial occupation at this point, because Orn Frita, the senator, was attempted to be assassinated. He isn't dead, right? That's the story that's being spun here. And basically the Syndulas are traitors, and to kind of make sure that order is restored, the Empire has taken the liberty of just basically full on occupying the planet at this point. And later on, Tech makes a note that the level of security and forces here on Ryloth is very similar to Raxus. So he's like, this is an Imperial occupation. So we get Rampart and Hauser. They go and talk to Cham and the Syndulas in their prison cell, and he's kind of taunting them because he wants to know where Hera is, wants to find her, and also just kind of taunting them as far as like their supporters and their place in all of this. So we kind of get more of Rampart's thinking on things, and we can definitely tell he's up to no good per usual. But Hauser, throughout the episode, really, and even the prior episode, Hauser has these visual cues where it's either in his eyes or his facial expressions where he's questioning, right, the Empire. I'm sure you picked up on that. I mean, it's pretty clear when he's just kind of like, that doesn't seem right, Rampart, because that dude's kind of a dick, flat out. But basically, Rampart, he's like, I'll find Hera. Or sorry, Hauser said, I'll find Hera. He's like, no, another squad is on that. And I think that was pretty clear what squad was assigned to find Hera. Unfortunately, it's Crosshair. So, that was the tip off that Crosshair is still hanging out here with Rampart on the planet.
Yeah.
And we move into this kind of, what is it? It's kind of like a public announcement. You got all the citizens in the main square there, and it's Rampart, and he's talking to them and basically saying that the senator, there's an attempt on his life by the Syndulas. His condition is improving. He'll be back, but for now, like, we need to make sure all of the Syndulas and their supporters are kind of rounded up. And basically we get that confirmation of the confusion, right, at first in the last episode, where it was, you're arrested for attempted assassination, when we're like, yeah, pretty sure he's dead. He got shot in the head. But now we kind of see why that confusion was there, because that's the story Rampart's spinning. And that also ties, like you mentioned, to the later book, how you're reading in the books that guy is still alive. So in fact, probably that guy in the book, later in the book, I think it's something Sith. It's about Darth Vader and Palpatine, but essentially we can assume that now that's an imposter to Orn Frita, and Orn Frita actually just died. So I think that's cool narratively wise, that they just revealed that otherwise this very kind of minor character later on is basically, it's not really him. We find out that he died in this like little operation in the canyon no one knows about.
Yeah.
And I thought this was interesting. Hera's not on the run. She's basically at her parents' residence, her house, and she's kind of like spying on what's going on down there. And Chopper's actually down there. So, she's being very proactive in terms of things. But it seems like she went back there first. And then her and Chopper kind of split to go back to essentially we see the place in the canyon where her uncle was headed with the guns and the weapons, and this is kind of like the Syndulla, little base of operation for their war efforts, back when during the Clone Wars, but it's still in use here. And basically she's observing Crosshair and his squad kind of just searching the house and things. Definitely a scary sight, because that is just a scary group of baddies right there. And so essentially Hera radios for help. And who might it be? It's the Batch. Because we find out that Omega they basically exchanged numbers. They're like, hey, we're friends now. Like, here's my number. If you need anything important, give me a ring. So that was convenient. I don't think I saw that. I mean, I did see it coming, but they did it in a way that was still kind of not literal, because they didn't show like them exchanging comm channels or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Because you think like when they're coming back, like, oh, kind of like we saw before, the senator or somebody's going to radio. So when you see it's the two younger girls in the scenario, like it's right. Omega is kind of getting the Batch into something now, right. First,
Yeah, and that's what it was. I pictured somehow Sid was going to get the call, right? Like it was going to be like her uncle, or somehow like she just knew in the case of emergencies to contact this person, and it was going to be Sid, and then
like that,
But I like that it was like directly to Omega. So I think I thought Sid was going to be the key there, but it went straight to Omega. And I thought that was really cool. You got a poltergeist in your room.
I don't know what that's pretty weird. I thought some lightning hit or something, honestly.
It's a little bit of paranormal activity going on there. I was like, I'm pretty sure it got brighter and stayed brighter.
Well, I have the fan on, but pulled the cord.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it just wasn't.
Maybe it just finally clicked. It was like in a half click position.
Yeah.
Who knows?
If something flies off the shelves, then.
Yeah, I mean that happened a couple episodes or whatever, where one of Mike's pops just fell off the shelf behind him. So his room is equally haunted. But yeah, like you said, basically Omega's kind of got the mission this time.
And she's like, "Oh, hey, that's my friend." Like,
yeah, she's like, "That's my girl." Like I just met her. Like she seems cool. And it's funny, kind of. She gave that. She likes Hera. Like they're friends. On a very kind of like. Not childish level, but like they're just downright friends. Like they just got each other. So while she's kind of pitching like the situation here, Hera is, because she's like, my parents need rescued and all that jazz. And, Tech's kind of like, well, kids tend to overreact to situations. So it's probably nothing. And I just thought there was an interesting dialogue, because like Hunter was hesitant. Like basically the Batch was like, I'm not so sure about this. Whole ordeal. Like we just literally met them for like a weapons drop off, and now we're getting paged to come like help. But I'm pretty sure that Omega drops the whole like I do it for you, basically, because she's trying to like save her family or like help a friend, whatever. And Hunter's like, okay, fine.
He's like, oh, we think we just drop everything, just go save somebody that we don't know? She's like, well, isn't that what soldiers do?
That's what it is. Yep.
Like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. She used the technicality there in Hunter. She's like, Is it, or is it not like what we're doing here? Like everything we do is supposed to be helping people. So yeah, they fly, they head straight there. Well, timeline wise, like not too much time has happened because last episode they did the weapon exchange.
Mm-hmm.
They flew back to Ryloth, got intercepted in the canyon, arrested, and that was all at night. So basically, this is the next morning.
Yeah.
So very easily, this isn't that much time forward. So the batch was probably still like just headed back to Sid's, or they weren't too far off. So they probably just like did a U-turn in space, however that works.
Yeah.
But they land in the canyon, and we see basically a little base of operation here. And I was finally like, yeah, okay, that's where the uncle was headed originally. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So they land, and Hera comes kind of out of the shadows, and she kind of explains the situation. And Tech recognizes Champs and Dula in Tex is kind of like the freedom fighter, right? Because basically they're acknowledging that Cham is known kind of throughout the Republic, or at least throughout the clone army, right? Because there's a lot of allies to the clones and people that they were helping, and the Ryloth had a decent story arc in the Clone Wars, so that was just kind of a callback there to Cham's prior involvement with the clones. So he's known, people know about him, and essentially Hunter agrees to check it out, but he's going to make no guarantees to actually helping Hera save her parents. And I mean, it's understandable. I mean, I think they loosely understand the situation because it's the Empire. They're basically going right into an imperially controlled planet. And that's like the last thing they typically want to do, let alone spring some prisoners out of Imperial jail at the capital. So I think it's not this scene, but the next scene, Hunter kind of makes that point to Omega, where it's basically you have to kind of know your limitations and pick your fights, which is understandable. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
So they head to the capital, right? And that's where we get we see Rampart giving that speech I was mentioning earlier, and Crosshair's patrolling, just keep making sure the crowd's in check, and the batch they're spying from the ridge, get that classic lineup of all the characters, and they're kind of spying over the ridge. That happens a lot in this show, or just in general in Star Wars. Kind of seems like a trope at this point. But we get a pro droid kind of like hovering off around the corner, like peeping on them. And while they're spying down on there, Omega sees Crosshair, and she's like, Hunter, Crosshair's down there. So like the batch, they kind of like see them, and then they kind of like break off and they huddle, and they're kind of just like weighing their options. They're like, it's like a whole battalion down there. The city's heavily guarded. And they're kind of they're you could tell they're on the fence about the situation. They're trying to figure out like what's our option here for like helping and doing anything. And then Hunter gets his little spidey senses, and he's like, I'll be right back. Rambo's the probe droid, just takes it down. They should have some oil. I think there was some oil. I don't know, like some oil shooting out in place of like blood and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, before the show, like kind of like the Rambo scene, just like in all its glory, should just have him just like mutilate that probe droid.
That's what I said to my brother. I feel like that was finally like the homage to Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
Because he even kind of like does like an electro, like sticks in it, and,
yeah, he's like
presses it off.
Yeah. That's and I'll say this now, and we see more of it later. But Hunter seems to be coming. He seems to be coming back to himself a little bit, like his spidey sense there, like he was on it. He's not really making many mistakes or questioning what's happening anymore. Like he's being very level-headed about things, and we see that a little bit when he's kind of questioning if they help Omega and go help Hera, then kind of being hesitant the whole time with this whole Hera situation. And throughout this episode, I just feel like they did a good job showing that he's more and more back on his game versus those, the whole first half of the season where the part of this season, he was not the hunter he should be. And we were talking about that a few episodes ago. But I kind of got the feeling that he's coming back. He's about to be like.
I was gonna say, like, I felt like, especially like this, like I said, Omega getting into this mission, I felt like it was supposed to feel like the mission, them getting kind of like their groove back for the first time fully since the first mission, with Crosshair.
Yeah.
That we see, in this series.
Well, on Rax is when they rescue that senator. Like, they're pretty smooth there. They didn't mess up.
Yeah. But like, I guess, for, like you said, like kind of that look he gives and stuff, like, kind of like, okay, yeah, you're right. This is what we do, right? We do what we do.
He's definitely becoming more comfortable with like kind of what they need to be doing. He's not lost anymore. But, I think, they make the obvious statement, like, Tech Space, like, crap, a probe droid. Wonderful. He's like, now the Empire knows we're here. And, kind of simultaneously, they split, but Crosshair gets the update, gets the intel, and one of his people was like, take a look at this. He's like, He's like, oh, yeah. And he, like, looks where they were. He, like, knew exactly where they were perched at, too.
Yeah.
He's had that killer look in his eye. Like, he's like excited, but he's also like concerned, or he's excited for like the challenge, but he was also pissed that they were that close.
Yeah.
Like, he probably could have shot them if he wanted to. If he knew, if he had if he had like his sniper perched somewhere and he could see them.
Yeah.
But this is the, definitely the first indication where the Batch saw Crosshair. They're kind of like, we really need to think about this. We can't just like dive in here. And then Crosshair now knows they're there. So this is like, does it happen this episode? Are they building up to it? So that was fun to see. So, back in the canyon, Hera struggles kind of understand why this is all happening, because it just gets more and more confusing as she kind of explores the situation with the Batch. Right, like her parents are in prison. The Empire's kind of taking over control of the planet. This probe droid's there. The Batch won't help. Like, she just wants her parents back, but there's like all this baggage with this like situation that she just doesn't care for. And she says, she's like, I don't care about any of that. I just want my parents.
Yeah.
Echo basically notes and he was trying to explain it, like, your father is kind of like the voice of the people like him. That's a threat to the Empire. So he's definitely going to be on their radar to get like taken out and removed. And that's just kind of like the stuff she doesn't really care for or understand. She's a kid. It's a very simple life as far as she understands it. But this, I think, is like also the turning point in her life where it's going from kid on Ryloth to rebel.
Yeah.
And, Tech's noting that like the patrols increased on the planet. They're all over the comm channels, and Hunter just makes the point that it's just too risky and they have to pick their battles kind of thing. And Omega, this is where Omega pulls like the family card kind of thing. Like, she just wants to save her family. She's like, I would do the same for you.
Yeah.
Hunter's just like, you got to do that to me. Like, back we kind of get another scene with Hauser and Rampart. They're kind of debating, or Hauser's kind of like, if we keep rounding up essentially innocent citizens, like, that's not going to go over well. And Rampart's just like, I don't care. Like, if they got a problem with it, then we'll arrest them too. Like, I just do not care about all these little kind of micro problems. And then they walk back to Rampart's office. Crosshair's in there. Crosshair informs Rampart that Clone Force 99 was spotted near the Capitol. And Crosshair's kind of essentially alluding to like, this is a problem, Rampart. And Rampart's like, we have a whole battalion here. Nothing to worry about. He's like, actually, you should probably do your job and go find Hera, because that's what you're supposed to be doing, not worrying about Clone Force 99. So, that's an interesting dynamic, because like Ramparts is kind of like this stick up his ass officer. He's in charge. Crosshair's trying to make a valid point. Hauser's trying to make a valid point, obviously for different reasons. But the point is that Rampart he doesn't care about anyone's opinion at this point because he's just all high and mighty. Everything's kind of going his way. Crosshair, I think in moments like that, Crosshair gets annoyed with his decision to hang out with the Empire. Like he would like just to go off and like do really badass missions. Meanwhile, he's like on patrol duty and listening to some like knucklehead suit.
Yeah, he seems like he just should be a bounty hunter, really.
Yeah, maybe he will. Maybe he will.
Working for himself,
Yeah. And also you get kind of glimpses, and because of this behavior, right? Because we kind of see Crosshair having his own agenda, or like what he thinks is correct, and this kind of lines up with how Hauser's acting as far as like these inhibitor chips. The effects they had before are either not as potent or they just don't work, right? So like Hauser, maybe they never worked on Hauser. Crosshair is pretty, I'm pretty sure that thing's fried because they keep showing his scar there. So like his is fried most likely, and we kind of see that in the way he's been acting. Is he's a little bit more free thinking. He's doing what he's told, but he's still like kind of questioning Hauser as far as like what they should be doing. So back in the canyon, Omega's kind of consulting Hera, basically saying Hunter will come around. He's got to give him time. He'll think it over. And basically she's like, we just have to give him a plan. Like, this planet better than anyone else. It's your home. So like, if we kind of just give them the right pitch, they'll be on board. Because right now that's just like what the batch doesn't know. They're just like, we don't really have a plan. So right now it's too risky. But Omega's making the case like, if we make it sound less risky and more doable, Hunter will help, because Hunter's basically, he's my brother. They'll help. We just have to reason with him a little bit, because ultimately, like, the safety of the group is his primary concern. And we jump back to the Capitol, and we have Hauser here talking with the Syndulas privately in the little prison cell area, and he's basically trying to explain his actions and convince them that he's still the same guy, and he's not doing this on purpose. He doesn't want to be helping the Empire, but it's just like the only option he had, because he was like, you guys attacked a convoy. What am I supposed to do? Just right there, like flip sides? He's like, I'm trying to help you. Just tell me where Hera is and I can help protect her. And they're just basically not buying it, because they kind of feel betrayed by Hauser, because he's basically Rampart's little lackey right now. So he's just kind of trying to plead his case here, or like gain their trust back a little bit, because this whole time, even in the last episode and definitely in this episode, he has those looks on his face where he just does not agree with what's going on. He's questioning Rampart. He gives that look when the Empire does something that's just not right. So you just see this building in him, because he just has this internal conflict where he knows what is right. But as a clone, he's still entitled to serve, the Empire, the Republic, etc. So he's having that internal conflict for sure. And I think that's where, the batch is or was, and that's where a lot of kind of the clones are that are less affected by the inhibitor chips, because it seems that the inhibitor chips are kind of wearing off overall. But that's nothing that has been explicitly said. We're kind of just taking the context clues of the show to better understand that story arc. And I think that's all going to feed into maybe perhaps the larger story arc of season 2. But I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as far as how that seems to be going, because we keep getting these wider and wider hints that these inhibitor chips are very variable in how they are working.
Yeah, I can notice, especially this one, especially with Hauser. You see his, like you said, that seems he has complete free will. And then, when we see coming up, right, when they're like, arrest them, you kind of see, right, they're just, some are thinking they're all, so they all at least have some kind of, free will towards
Right.
following the orders and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, and
it's definitely something with that the chips are losing their effect some way, whether
yeah.
it's time or whatever, or random, or however it is. Like,
Yeah, something's going on with those. Not entirely clear, but we're getting very results, because at the beginning of the season they're like switches, like Wrecker, and that wasn't even that long ago. That thing turned on in Wrecker's brain, and he just went completely blacked out, basically.
Yeah,
Became a robot. Whereas we're getting these other clones that are much less affected or not affected at all. So we have this like weird spectrum, and it hasn't exactly been explained yet, but I think that'll be something that gets explained in the next season.
Yeah.
So basically, Omega and Hera, they pitched their plan to do a classic diversion strike where they're like, if we attack the refinery, Rampart will send the battalion to go defend it, drawing them away from the city, and then we'll rescue my parents. Mm-hmm. And, they come with a little bit extra backup too, because they're like, Chopper can... first the batch kind of is like, what's it like at this refinery? What are the defenses? And they're like, well, there's just auto turrets. And Tech's like, auto turrets aren't really that they're not that harmful. They're easy to take out from like a central control point. And basically they're like, Chopper can do this. So they more or less kind of have this decent plan to like go about it. And Hera knows her way around the planet. So at this point, pretty easily convinced, Hunter agrees. Hunter basically says Omega and Hera will go help out Chopper from a distance. And I think Tech was like on their own. Like he was like kind of concerned that the two kids are going to be like off on their own with, Chopper. And then Tech and Wrecker, they'll take the ship to go cause some damage and mess up the facility. And then Echo and Hunter are going to go scale the city walls and rescue the Syndulas. And I like the Hunter Echo combo because I don't know, they're just kind of both stealthy.
Yeah.
Something like that. So I like the matchups here. And then Tech and Wrecker, they're kind of like polar opposites, but one flies the ship, one likes blowing things up from the gunning position. Yeah. So I like this plan. I like it a lot. And it led to some good action. So, we jump right to it, and Chopper's kind of rolling up, and he sneak in with this kind of like a shift change because there's a bunch of droids and a bunch of people showing up to work. So he kind of slips in there, sneaks through, takes out the protocol droid that is at the terminal he needs. Going all well until he's like, I just can't do it. And Hera and Omega on the ridge, and Hera's like, what do you mean you can't do it? You said you can do it. Like, that's a big problem. So they kind of have to hatch an updated plan. And this is where you see Omega really kind of in her own realm of things, where she's just kind of taking charge. And she's like, let's steal a shuttle. Essentially, she's like, and then was like, she's like, you want to be a pilot, right? This is your chance. She's like, you can fly, we can hijack that shuttle, we can do it. It's fine. And it was funny because when they're sneaking in there, Hera was like, my parents would not approve of this at all. Like, this does not seem like a good idea. Little does she know, her parents would highly approve of covert rebel activity, as it foreshadows her future of being just a crazy rebel doing crazy things. And it's also nice because really quickly we're going to see Hera effectively fly her first mission. And her being like an ace pilot is just a huge thing in Rebels. So really setting up her character early here for kind of the rest of Rebels. So they're getting right to that. So, they take control of the shuttle. It's a little rough taking off. She kind of slams into another shuttle, and it's kind of real messy. And right before they take off, Tech's like, so how has Chopper got the turrets disabled? And Omega's like, not yet. Don't shoot down our shuttle. Tech's like, wait, what shuttle? And just ends the call. So Tech being very kind of structured person, all of a sudden it seems like a very unstructured chain of events is about to happen.
Mhm.
So always just kind of good dialogue there. But yeah, they start shooting up the facility. They blow up the terminal. The guns go down. Tech does this crazy maneuver where he it's just boosts the ship. It's like really
Mhm.
fast and then like stops it and like turns it on a dime. I thought that was all very cool.
Yeah.
And then he delivers that that comic relief line there to Hera about like, I'm sure your maneuvers are as confusing to them as they are to us, or like your crazy and unpredictable maneuvers, because she's just kind of flying that thing all over the place. Meanwhile, Hunter and Echo are scaling the walls, stealthily taking out the guards, and they very easily get into where the Syndulas are being held. And on their way out, well, in and amongst all that, the facility is under attack. Rampart orders the battalion to go defend the facility. As all the clones are loading on their gunships and leaving, Crosser's like, stop. And he just tells his troops to stop. He's like, this isn't their target. And when the clones like, well, why would they be attacking the facility if it's not their target? This is Crosshair being smart and part of the batch. Mm-hmm. He sees what's going on here. It's clearly a diversion. Their target is to save the Syndulas. Mm-hmm. Smart on his part. Now, the question I have is, how does he know what door they're coming out of? Oh, well. He orders like the battalion, his troops, his squad to kind of get some like riot shields, which is cool to see. And they kind of like surround essentially the main exit to the courtyard where there should be ships, but there weren't any. And he takes up a sniper position. So I don't know if this was like the only way out or how he determined like they have to be coming out this way. I'm not sure. It was pretty convenient because that's the way they were planning on coming out.
Yeah.
And if they did come out there, what were they? I didn't see any ships. They took them all. I don't know. It was weird.
I think like Hauser, says like, oh, they have you completely surrounded.
Well,
they don't show it. Yeah, they do. He just happens to crosshairs at the one where they.
Yeah, it's just coincidence. Yeah. It works. But yeah, so Hauser, he's there when the batch ends, so the Syndulas get there, and he's basically like, don't go this way. It's a trap. There's a battalion or squad out there waiting for you. And basically he just finally makes his final case, to the Syndulas that like, I'm on your side. I'm trying to help you. None of this is right. And basically, I mean, they all quickly level and they're on the same page, and they kind of like, yeah, we'll take the senator's ship out of here. And basically, Hera's mom is like, you should come with us. They're going to know you helped. And he's like, no, I have to stay behind. I can't leave my brothers. And he's like, I have to convince them somehow. So he's convinced that he can convince, right, more clones that this is wrong, which is more of that kind of suggestion that this inhibitor chip just isn't working anymore. If all you can do is just like logically talk to people and kind of talk them out of it. Now, maybe because the Jedi are mostly out of the equation, and that was like the primary point of Order 66 was to exterminate the Jedi, maybe enough time has passed to where logically the Order no longer makes sense. Because Hauser's point is like, we're now occupying a planet that we were trying to prevent from being occupied.
Yeah.
So maybe enough time has gone by to where the order that the inhibitor chip was meant to carry out no longer like makes sense logically. So maybe maybe it's that, and that's kind of wearing off, but it's more of like a described way of wearing off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they're gonna, eventually I think they'll give us definition there as to what is happening. And, so they split and he walks out. And this is where he basically makes his argument. He's like, he throws his weapon down. And he's like, right now, he's like, none of this is right. And we see a handful of other clones throw their weapons down. Crosshair orders the rest to arrest them for treason. So now we just have, Hauser one, he was a captain. He's kind of special in that sense. So maybe the inhibitor chip has less effect there because he's just more of a thinker. But now we have regular clones just throwing down their weapons. So this is where it just seems like either enough time has passed and the chip physically is no longer working, or the order no longer makes sense. The purpose of the chip no longer makes sense. So therefore, the clones are going to start thinking for themselves a little bit. Be like, oh, yeah, there's no Jedi. Like, why are we basically being tyrants on planets that we were trying to free? So, I don't know. But I think that'll be a big part of season 2 is, basically in this season, I'm pretty sure we're going to see the whole Crosshair thing play out. Crosshair, he might die, but he's ultimately going to have his run in with the Batch, and he's either going to die or he's going to join them. Wild card scenario, what you said, maybe he'll be a bounty hunter and just go off on his own. But that's the big arc of this season is the Batch versus Crosshair, and the Batch kind of finding their way. So but ultimately, like I said on the last episode or two ago, set up in the very first episode of this season is the idea of the Empire needing to either make more clones or replace the clones entirely. So the fact of the inhibitor chips wearing off, clones starting to think for themselves and question the Empire and their motives. Season 2, I'm pretty sure, is going to be mostly about the phasing out of the clones from the Empire. Because that's like a noted thing in Star Wars canon, but I think they're actually going to show it all go down. I think in Battlefront 2 for the 2005 game, part of the campaign was kind of like this rebellion on Kamino, where a whole battalion of clones like rebelled against the Kaminoans, and you have to go there and like stop them. And this was during like the Empire rising up. So it's basically, I'm pretty sure we're going to get a recanonizing of this series of events. Basically the phasing out of the clones from the Imperial Army. So I think they're setting up these threads for that to be a big part of season 2. And obviously the Batch will be involved there. And most likely Hunter is going to perhaps realize that he needs to save his brothers, all of them, somehow from the Empire. I kind of feel like that's the direction it's going. I'm not sure if how do you kind of think it's going there? Because they're giving us a lot. They're like very subtly suggesting the development of that arc without really saying anything tangible of it lately. Because really, the inhibitor chips, as far as we know, they work, but now they kind of don't work. Yeah. So
I kind of thought maybe that scene was like a little small foreshadowing of right now we're going to get almost this planet's about to erupt between, the people who inhabit it and now the clones with the chips that aren't working, like we see them all arresting the other ones and stuff. I mean, like I said, as far as the Batch, like we kind of been wondering, like eventually they're going to have another showdown with Crosshair, right? Like we get that one, back in the middle of the series. And, like we see at the end here, he goes to and gets his orders from Rampart, and he's like, so I can go after them, right? And he's like, go ahead. So, that's what the next episode. I don't know if we're going to get to see that conclusion to that, or like we said, they're going to join at the end of the next one with a finale coming up. But like you said, I definitely think we're going to see the Crosshair arc play out for sure.
Right.
Yeah. If you're right and we get a season 2, I think this will play out definitely in this season.
Yeah, to me, it was just a cool scene. It's just very powerful imagery when you see the clone, like a group of clones, throw their weapons down because they're like, I'm done. So I think, like you said, that's kind of like foreshadowing, right, to what we might see in season 2, where the clones are going to hypothetically throw down their weapons. Probably they're going to turn and point them back at the Empire, in all realistically, and so some sort of probably tragic turn against the Empire, because there's not like in canon it being known that like there's a ton of clones that survive the Clone Wars. There's really only a few that do. So there's a lot of clones to be accounted for as far as like that need to die. So as morbid as that is, that's kind of like the direction the show is going to be taking at some point in some way. So to me, it was just a powerful scene, because this was like the first time that normal clones are just like, yeah, this is stupid, we're done. So
that's what I was saying. Like, it almost like, well, the war is over.
Yeah.
But it's about to it's pretty much just about to begin again. Like,
from one war to the next.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
And it doesn't look like we're done on quite yet. On Ryloth, I think there might be at least a little bit. Not with the batch, but I don't know if Hauser's.
He's arrested.
Oh yeah, but that's still on Ryloth, right?
Yeah, he's arrested. I mean, yeah. Well, they might take him off world. So
yeah.
I think, and we get this scene in there. We get Hunter. Like, Hauser basically puts his helmet back on because he's about to walk out. As as they're leaving, Hunter looks back and he kind of looks at him. They don't like see each other, but Hunter's just looking at him. And I think Hunter's just kind of acknowledging like he's leaving a brother behind. Obviously, that was his brother's choice to leave him behind, but he's also like, I shouldn't leave him behind. And I think that's more of that foreshadowing that this story, that arc, is going to propel into season 2, and Hunter's going to decide that they need to save the clones, or save Hauser specifically, or all the different people that they meet. Mm-hmm. So this is more of like Hunter kind of coming back into his own and kind of figuring out their place in the galaxy. Because he just, I mean, his helmet's on, but he gives him a look. He's thinking about it. There's something he's thinking about. And like kind of the repercussions of this. And basically he didn't want to leave him behind, but he understood why he had to. And also he also might be thinking about a lot of the same things that we are. And it's like, why doesn't the chip work? Right. He's kind of like confused by the situation, because here's a clone completely doing what he thinks is right. And maybe Hunter's looking up to that as well, because Hunter this whole time has been confused about his place and like the batch's place. But here we have Hauser still in the clone army, technically a regular clone. And he's just like, this ain't right. So Hunter, I think, at least, was looking up to Hauser and like really taking his actions and trying to process them. Like, this is bigger than just us.
He's kind of like them, right? It's kind of like, not quite on that level, but he could be like a member of the batch. You know what I mean? Like, in a different scenario.
Yeah.
So Hunter's kind of like, maybe, kind of like you said, feeling that, hey, maybe there's more of us, than we, like you said, than we thought.
Yeah, he was kind of witnessing a wayward brother there, another one of them, essentially, these defiant clones, deviant clones.
Yeah, because my brother John, he even asked, like, when Crosshair just knew, he's like, so does he have like a common sense with the other members of the batch, or just like? I was like, I think it's just like knowing their strategy. I was like, but honestly, it could be some kind of, like he just kind of instinctively knew, but I don't,
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
I think it's a little bit of everything. Like, obviously he knows their tactics. Like, I think probably from the intel and like probably from like the probe droids intel, he could tell where they were based on their position. Like, he looked right at them. I think he's just super smart about that kind of stuff, but he also has a sixth sense for what Hunter is probably up to. because they're brothers and they've been through a lot together. So
Yeah.
not unlikely for you just to know what your brothers are up to out there. But yeah, so I mean, it looks like we're back on Ord Mantell, basically the planet where Sid's base is at, and we see the Syndulas and the Batch kind of parting ways. Hunter refuses payment. He's like, "You're going to need it for the fight ahead." And Hera and Omega kind of say farewell. But also here we kind of get Hunter, he basically told, because the Syndulas like, we essentially use your help. And he basically told him, was like, I have other things to do. But he was very sure of himself about saying that, like, he has other priorities. And it's definitely all about his little family there, the Batch, Omega. Mm-hmm. So that was a nice little scene. And then we get kind of, Hera and Omega saying their goodbyes. And is this the last they see each other? Will they see each other again? Not sure. Not this season. I think we're done with the Syndulas for this season, unless there's some kind of epic like mashup of everybody they ran into in the last episode. But I don't think so. It's not one of those. Yeah. One of those bits. And then here at the end we get Rampart inspecting the refinery, the carnage, the destruction by Wrecker. In the crew there, and basically Rampart's admitting to Crosshair that he underestimated his friends, but he calls them his friends, and he's like, it would be nice if they were working for us and not against us. Kind of more like questioning, like, you guys aren't all you're cracked up to be. Like, if anything, you clones are like a pain in my ass. So interesting little bit there, but the Crosshair kind of ignores his cattiness, and he's just like, permission to hunt them down. Yeah. And Rampart's like, granted. So there we get it. We get the order for Crosshair to go after his brothers, and this is kind of like what we've been waiting for. Because we got the little run in on the salvage planet where Crosshair got messed up, but that wasn't technically an order to go kind of clear them out. But now he has the like official directive to go hunt them down. So that's where these last two episodes, I'm pretty sure, are going to pin us. So it looks like we're going to have basically have a 2-arc episode of Ryloth setting up the 2-part episode of the finale. Though it would be interesting if they split it up and do like a regular episode for episode 11 and then do like an hour-long one for episode 13, then an hour-long one for episode 14. I'm not sure. Definitely interested to see where they take this. But it definitely looks like we're going to get resolution. Most likely it's all going to be about Crosshair hunting the Batch. I'm not sure what else they're going to kind of squeeze into this. I think that they're going to let the whole inhibitor chip clone topic rest until next season. I'm pretty confident we're going to get a second season at this point. So it kind of seems like a duel off with Crosshair, and it's basically we're going to get resolution on Crosshair. I don't think he's either going to join back with them. Probably not. He's done some pretty irredeemable things. So he's probably going to die.
Yeah. I feel like if I had to guess in the next episode or two, I'd say we may get a flashback to say like some kind of mission, that we haven't, that with the Batch that they did or something. And then maybe see some kind of correlation between that mission and, the end of Crosshair. I'd say Crosshair's arc, probably more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
Right. Yeah, and that'll be another interesting thing, because obviously that's kind of going to be the gist of the end of it, is the resolution on Crosshair's arc. But it's going to be, will it be centered around Omega still? Like, is Omega's arc as far as like getting pulled back to Kamino, because that's kind of been a topic untouched since the whole Cad Bane situation. Is that going to get resurfaced? Is she going to be in danger again? Are we going to get more bounty hunters? Right. This goes back to the idea of like all the other characters that they set up, right? Because we had Rex,
Yeah.
Do we get a continuation of his connections? We had Fennec, right? Do we get Boba? It kind of seems like they've been steering away from all that.
Yeah.
And this is going to be like a homegrown batch versus batch, Crosshair versus the batch situation. But I definitely think there's room to fit another web of characters in here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Especially because it seems like both time like Fennec just kind of shows up, right?
Yeah.
Then like I think the last time we saw her, she was like, "Well, hey, if you need anything else." So that's me. I would not be surprised if
Yeah.
Especially now that the Empire, like whatever happened on that, they might have Omega on film now, especially getting into one of the cruiser, battleships. Maybe we can go to the Kaminoans and be like, "Isn't this,
right,
and causing this damage?"
Yeah, and definitely like earlier in the season, I kind of would have thought we were kind of speculating that they would have to save Omega, and that's where they would like call in help from all the people they ran into this season. But it's kind of not that. They're still being hunted. So unless they're put in a situation where they're like, we need help, and like we get I'm drawing a blank on his name. He was in episode 3 and episode 1, the ones that they were sent to kill. Oh man, he's in Solo. Say that again.
Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, Saw Gerrera. Like, are they gonna? It's just I don't see how a lot of these characters come back in because they're not seeking help. They will be when Crosshair catches up with them. It'll just be interesting to see if they plug any more prior characters or if we get a completely brand new character that they run into in this next episode and helps them into the finale. Not sure. They're doing a good job keeping it kind of. They've done such a good job this series going kind of all over the place. They can continue to do that because they're just kind of further proving how interconnected this stuff can be. They're not stuck to like a narrow set of characters anymore.
And that's what like there's a few like you said where they could actually turn, right? Because like I think like we still saw them like they're in the good side of Bib Fortuna, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, not saying, but that who knows?
I guess it's a matter of where they are at when Crosshair catches up with them. That'll be the big point. Where they're at and what they're doing when he catches up. So are they going to take up another innocent mission and then Crosshair will finally catch up with them?
Yeah.
Or are they going to know Crosshair's after them sooner than later?
And I would say definitely too, so they said definitely showed in this episode, Crosshair knows pretty well, at the very least of what the batch's instincts are and stuff. So, he should be, kind of always right on their tail, even if they do get away, a little bit. So I think we're definitely, it's going to be some nice classic Star Wars action, when it culminates here.
Yeah, it'll be good. No matter what, it'll be good, and I'll be happy with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty tied up 2-episode arc there. They ended it with kind of a very clean departing ways from the Syndulas and the batch, and didn't really allude to like next steps outside of they are being hunted. That's really it. So pretty open-ended. They can basically start fresh for this next episode and then lead it right into the finale. But yeah, you got anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think we touched on a good amount and everything. So
it's just we could speculate all night, but it's just too open-ended at this point. Just a very clean start. I'm excited for it. But outside of that, I don't have anything else to add. That was the episode, Rescue on Ryloth. Another solid one in the books. 2 more left. And that will be the wrap on season 1 here. Definitely excited for that. So
Yeah, me too.
Be sure to tune in Thursday for another episode of, I believe we have what's watching. No topic decided yet, but we'll have one by then for everyone. And then I think I'm going to be out of town on vacation this next Sunday. Should be good, very high chance that I am. So we'll probably be skipping this episode coverage of episode 13 this coming Sunday. But we will try to, I think, depending on how this episode 13 goes, it's either going to be a 2-episode banger for the last companion series here episode, or we'll squeeze in an early recap of that before the finale. We'll see what they have in store for us. I think I just fear it being like an hour and a half finale. Then we'll have do a 3-hour companion series, which it is what it is. But until then, have a great night, and thank you for tuning in. This has been the Bad Batch Companion Series presented by the Showboys. We do what we do. Have a good evening. Play the outro music. Dun-dun-dun-dun.
We do what we do.